In philosophy of mind, dualism is the position that mental phenomena are, in some respects, non-physical, or that the mind and body are not identical. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, and between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions, such as physicalism and enactivism, in the mind-body problem. Aristotle shared Plato's view of multiple souls and further elaborated a hierarchical arrangement, corresponding to the distinctive functions of plants, animals and people, a nutritive soul of growth and metabolism, that all three share, a perceptive soul of pain, pleasure and desire, that only people and other animals share, and the faculty of reason, that is unique to people only. In this view, a soul is the hylomorphic form of a viable organism, wherein each level of the hierarchy formally supervenes upon the substance of the preceding level. Thus, for Aristotle, all three souls perish when the living organism dies. For Plato, however, the soul was not dependent on the physical body. He believed in metempsychosis, the migration of the soul to a new physical body. Dualism is closely associated with the thought of René Descartes, which holds that the mind is a non-physical, and therefore, non-spatial, substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the brain, as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism, but property dualism may be considered a form of emergent materialism or non-reductive physicalism in some sense. Types of mind-body dualism. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundations. Property dualism suggests that the ontological distinction lies in the differences between properties of mind and matter. Predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. Substance or Cartesian dualism. Substance dualism is a type of dualism most famously defended by René Descartes, which states that there are two kinds of foundation, mental and body. This philosophy states that the mental cannot exist outside of the body, and the body cannot think. Substance dualism is important historically for having given rise to much thought regarding the famous mind-body problem. Substance dualism is a philosophical position compatible with most theologies which claim that immortal souls occupy an independent realm of existence distinct from that of the physical world. Property dualism. Property dualism asserts that an ontological distinction lies in the differences between properties of mind and matter, and that consciousness is ontologically irreducible to neurobiology and physics. It asserts that when matter is organized in the appropriate way, mental properties emerge. Hence, it is a sub-branch of emergent materialism. What views properly fall under the property dualism rubric is itself a matter of dispute. There are different versions of property dualism, some of which claim independent categorization. Non-reductive physicalism is a form of property dualism in which it is asserted that all mental states are causally reducible to physical states. One argument for this has been made in the form of anomalous monism expressed by Donald Davidson, where it is argued that mental events are identical to physical events, and there can be strict law-governed causal relationships. His view is that although mental states are ontologically irreducible to physical states, they are causally reducible. He has acknowledged that, to many people, his views and those of property dualists look a lot alike, but he thinks the comparison is misleading. Epiphenomenalism. Epiphenomenalism is a form of property dualism, in which it is asserted that one or more mental states do not have any influence on physical states. It asserts that while material causes give rise to sensations, volitions, ideas, etc., such mental phenomena themselves cause nothing further. They are causal dead ends. This can be contrasted to interactionism, on the other hand, in which mental causes can produce material effects, and vice versa. Predicate dualism. Predicate dualism is a view espoused by non-reductive physicalists such as Donald Davidson and Jerry Fedor, who maintain that while there is only one ontological category of substances and properties of substances, the predicates that we use to describe mental events cannot be redescribed in terms of physical predicates of natural languages. If we characterize predicate monism as the view subscribed to by eliminative materialists, who maintain that such intentional predicates as believe, desire, think, feel, etc., will eventually be eliminated from both the language of science and from ordinary language because the entities to which they refer do not exist, then predicate dualism is most easily defined as the negation of this position. Predicate dualists believe that so-called folk psychology, with all of its propositional attitude descriptions, is an ineliminable part of the enterprise of describing, explaining and understanding human mental states and behavior. Davidson, for example, subscribes to anomalous monism, according to which there can be no strict psychophysical laws which connect mental and physical events under their descriptions as mental and physical events. However, all mental events also have physical descriptions. It is in terms of the latter that such events can be connected in law-like relations with other physical events. Mental predicates are irreducibly different in character from physical predicates. Dualist views of mental causation. This part is about causation between properties and states of the thing under study, not its substances or predicates. Here a state is the set of all properties of what's being studied. Thus each state describes only one point in time. Interactionism. Interactionism is the view that mental states, such as beliefs and desires, causally interact with physical states. This is a position which is very appealing to common-sense intuitions, notwithstanding the fact that it is very difficult to establish its validity or correctness by way of logical argumentation or empirical proof. It seems to appeal to common sense because we are surrounded by such everyday occurrences as a child's touching a hot stove which causes him to feel pain and then yell and scream which causes his parents to experience a sensation of fear and protectiveness and so on. Non-reductive physicalism. Non-reductive physicalism is the idea that while mental states are physical, they are not reducible to physical properties. In that an ontological distinction lies in the differences between the properties of mind and matter. According to non-reductive physicalism, all mental states are causally reducible to physical states, where mental properties map to physical properties, and vice versa. A prominent form of non-reductive physicalism called anomalous monism was first proposed by Donald Davidson in his 1970 paper Mental Events, where it is claimed that mental events are identical with physical events, and that the mental is anomalous, i.e., under their mental descriptions these mental events are not regulated by strict physical laws. Epiphenomenalism. According to epiphenomenalism, all mental events are caused by a physical event and have no physical consequences, and that one or more mental states do not have any influence on physical states. So, the mental event of deciding to pick up a rock is caused by the firing of specific neurons in the brain. When the arm and hand move to pick up the rock, this is not caused by the preceding mental event M1, nor by M1 and P1 together, but only by P1. The physical causes are in principle reducible to fundamental physics, and therefore mental causes are eliminated using this reductionist explanation. If P1 causes both M1 and P2, there is no overdetermination in the explanation for P2. The idea that even if the animal were conscious, nothing would be added to the production of behavior, even in animals of the human type, was first voiced by Lamartine, and then by Cabanis, and was further explicated by Hodgson and Huxley. Jackson gave a subjective argument for epiphenomenalism, but later refuted it and embraced physicalism. term parallelism. Psychophysical parallelism is a very unusual view about the interaction between mental and physical events, which was most prominently, and perhaps only truly, advocated by Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz. Like Malebranche and others before him, Leibniz recognized the weaknesses of Descartes' account of causal interaction taking place in a physical location in the brain. Malebranche decided that such a material basis of interaction between material and immaterial was impossible, and therefore formulated his doctrine of Occasionalism, stating that the interactions were really caused by the intervention of God on each individual occasion. Leibniz's idea is that God has created a pre-established harmony such that it only seems as if physical and mental events cause, and are caused by, one another. In reality, mental causes only have mental effects and physical causes only have physical effects. Hence the term parallelism is used to describe this view. Occasionalism is a philosophical doctrine about causation which says that created substances cannot be efficient causes of events. Instead, all events are taken to be caused directly by God himself. The theory states that the illusion of efficient causation between mundane events arises out of a constant conjunction that God had instituted, such that every instance where the cause is present will constitute an occasion for the effect to occur as an expression of the aforementioned power. This occasioning relation, however, falls short of efficient causation. In this view, it is not the case that the first event causes God to cause the second event. Rather, God first caused one and then caused the other, but chose to regulate such behavior in accordance with general laws of nature. Some of its most prominent historical exponents have been Louis de la Forge, Arnold Gehling-X, and Nicolas Malebranche. Historical overview. Plato and Aristotle. In the dialogue Phaedo, Plato formulated his famous theory of forms as distinct and immaterial substances of which the objects and other phenomena that we perceive in the world are nothing more than mere shadows. Plato makes it clear, in the Phaedo, that the forms or the universalia are anti-res, i.e., they are ideal universals, by which we are able to understand the world. In his allegory of the cave, Plato likens the achievement of philosophical understanding to emerging into the sun from a dark cave, where only vague shadows of what lies beyond that prison are cast dimly upon the wall. Plato's forms are non-physical and non-mental. They exist nowhere in time or space, but neither do they exist in the mind, nor in the pleroma of matter. Rather, matter is said to participate in form. It remained unclear, however, even to Aristotle, exactly what Plato intended by that. Aristotle argued at length against many aspects of Plato's forms, creating his own doctrine of hylomorphism wherein form and matter coexist. Ultimately, however, Aristotle's aim was to perfect a theory of forms, rather than to reject it. Although Aristotle strongly rejected the independent existence Plato attributed to forms, his metaphysics do agree with Plato's a priori considerations quite often. For example, Aristotle argues that changeless, eternal substantial form is necessarily immaterial. Because matter provides a stable substratum for a change in form, matter always has the potential to change. Thus, if given an eternity in which to do so, it will, necessarily, exercise that potential. Part of Aristotle's psychology, the study of the soul, is his account of the ability of humans to reason and the ability of animals to perceive. In both cases, perfect copies of forms are acquired, either by direct impression of environmental forms, in the case of perception, or else by virtue of contemplation, understanding and recollection. He believed the mind can literally assume any form being contemplated or experienced, and it was unique in its ability to become a blank slate, having no essential form. As thoughts of earth are not heavy, any more than thoughts of fire are casually efficient, they provide an immaterial complement for the formless mind. From Neoplatonism to Scholasticism. In the philosophical school of Neoplatonism, most active in late antiquity, claimed that the physical and the spiritual are both emanations of the one. Neoplatonism exerted a considerable influence on Christianity, as did the philosophy of Aristotle via scholasticism. In the scholastic tradition of St. Thomas Aquinas, a number of whose doctrines have been incorporated into Roman Catholic dogma. The soul is the substantial form of a human being. Aquinas held the Questiones Disputate de Anima, or disputed questions on the soul, at the Roman Studium Provincial of the Dominican Order at Santa Sabina, the forerunner of the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, Angelicum, during the academic year 1265–66. By 1268 Aquinas had written at least the first book of the Sententia Libri de Anima, Aquinas' commentary on Aristotle's De Anima, the translation of which from the Greek was completed by Aquinas' Dominican associate at the Terbo William of Moab AK in 1267. Like Aristotle, Aquinas held that the human being was a unified composite substance of two substantial principles, form and matter. The soul is the substantial form and so the first actuality of immaterial organic body with the potentiality for life. While Aquinas defended the unity of human nature as a composite substance constituted by these two inextricable principles of form and matter, he also argued for the incorruptibility of the intellectual soul, in contrast to the corruptibility of the vegetative and sensitive animation of plants and animals. His argument for the subsistence and incorruptibility of the intellectual soul takes its point of departure from the metaphysical principle that operation follows upon being, i.e., the activity of a thing reveals the mode of being and existence it depends upon. Since the intellectual soul exercises its own per se intellectual operations without employing material faculties, i.e., intellectual operations are immaterial, the intellect itself and the intellectual soul must likewise be immaterial and so incorruptible. Even though the intellectual soul of man is able to subsist upon the death of the human being, Aquinas does not hold that the human person is able to remain integrated at death. The separated intellectual soul is neither a man nor a human person. The intellectual soul by itself is not a human person. Hence, Aquinas held that soul of Saint Peter pray for us would be more appropriate than Saint Peter pray for us, because all things connected with his person, including memories, ended with his corporeal life. The Catholic doctrine of the resurrection of the body states that at the second coming, the souls of the departed will be reunited with their bodies as a whole person in witness to the apocalypse. The thorough consistency between dogma and contemporary science was maintained here in part from a serious attendance to the principle that there can be only one truth. Consistency with science, logic, philosophy, and faith remained a high priority for centuries, and a university doctorate in theology generally included the entire science curriculum as a prerequisite. This doctrine is not universally accepted by Christians today. Many believe that one's immortal soul goes directly to heaven upon death of the body. Descartes and his disciples. In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes embarked upon a quest in which he called all his previous beliefs into doubt, in order to find out of what he could be certain. In so doing, he discovered that he could doubt whether he had a body, but he could not doubt whether he had a mind. This gave Descartes his first inkling that the mind and body were different things. The mind, according to Descartes, was a thinking thing, and an immaterial substance. This thing was the essence of himself, that which doubts, believes, hopes, and thinks. The body, the thing that exists, regulates normal bodily functions. According to Descartes, animals only had a body, a res extensa, and not a soul. The distinction between mind and body is argued in Meditation via as follows. I have a clear and distinct idea of myself as a thinking, non-extended thing, and a clear and distinct idea of body as an extended and non-thinking thing. Whatever I can conceive clearly and distinctly, God can so create. So, Descartes argues, the mind, a thinking thing, can exist apart from its extended body. and therefore, the mind is a substance distinct from the body, a substance whose essence is thought. The central claim of what is often called Cartesian dualism, in honor of Descartes, is that the immaterial mind and the material body, while being ontologically distinct substances, causally interact. This is an idea that continues to feature prominently in many non-European philosophies. Mental events cause physical events, and vice versa. But this leads to a substantial problem for Cartesian dualism. How can an immaterial mind cause anything in a material body, and vice versa? This has often been called the problem of interactionism. Descartes himself struggled to come up with a feasible answer to this problem. In his letter to Elizabeth of Bohemia, Princess Palatine, he suggested that spirits interacted with the body through the pineal gland, a small gland in the center of the brain, between the two hemispheres. The term Cartesian dualism is also often associated with this more specific notion of causal interaction through the pineal gland. However, this explanation was not satisfactory. How can an immaterial mind interact with the physical pineal gland? Because Descartes was such a difficult theory to defend, some of his disciples, such as Arnold Gierlinck and Nicholas Malebranche, proposed a different explanation, that all mind-body interactions required the direct intervention of God. According to these philosophers, the appropriate states of mind and body were only the occasions for such intervention, not real causes. These occasionalists maintained the strong thesis that all causation was directly dependent on God, instead of holding that all causation was natural except for that between mind and body.